Welcome to Talkin Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And we got our last episode before camp. We have NYG Daily on. We talked to him for about 30 minutes. And I want to clean up some Saquon Barkley stuff. Justin, I want to tell listeners this off rip. We're going to talk a lot of Saquon Barkley in this episode. After this, we're really not going to. We're going to just cover camp. That's what, I'm sure when we have the reporters on, we will ask them one question about it and try and keep it under 2 minutes, but we're not going to beat this. I'm excited for camp. Hope Saquon Barkley shows up whenever he shows up, but I am not going to be spending the next month talking about Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, Bobby Skinner, we're getting into it, but yeah, this episode's going to be like debriefing the Saquon Barkley situation. That's what the title of this episode's going to be. But after this, starting next week, I believe for the next 6 weeks, it's PPPs. It's episodes 2 times a week where we're going to be getting the beat reporters in the van, and it's live streams after every single Giants practice that is available to the public, including we're trying to go to Detroit, and that's looking pretty promising. So really looking forward to it, really excited for it. Get ready, because we're going to cover camp kind of better than everybody else. We recorded our first 2 PPPs, by the way, yesterday, and I thought that was the best start to any PPPs that we've had so far this year. It was great flow, great rhythm, enough information, not too much information, super conversational. So we'll kick it off with the longest tenure Giant, Sterling Shepard, like we always do.
Yeah, I got to go and count how much content we have coming out in the next 6 weeks. So excited for that. First, this episode was brought to you by some special people. Kyle Schnitzer, my guy, Kyle. Tyler CD's Nuts. And then Kenneth M. Ciradiello, Esquire. Very fancy.
Wow. Esquire, huh?
Esquire. ESQ dot. So go check them out. Justin, who are these people?
Esquire, isn't that? I wonder if he's a lawyer. ESQ, is that abbreviation for lawyers? I was a criminal justice major. Patreon.com/Talkin Giants, $2 a month. Plus some of the tiers. You get to hang out with us live while we record the shows. Bobby Skinner will send you some stickers in the mail, and there's a couple shirt raffles a couple times a month. Patreon.com/Talkin Giants. Thanks to our patrons. Love you.
That is a lawyer for your information.
I was right.
Before we get Weiss on, I do want to, you use the word debrief on some of the Saquon stuff now that the dust has settled on it. Yeah. A few things. He had that interview. We'll talk about that a little bit. But I've pieced together the timeline of this pretty well and talked with people, and I think this is right, and obviously the reports that were out there.
Tell me.
He was offered a solid deal, probably the best, either close to or the second best contract he was offered at the bye week. And they declined it. Bet on yourself. And then the offer, another offer, which was a little bit increased in average annual value, was offered before the tag deadline. Well, now I don't know exactly when that was taken off the table, but they told him they were going to take it off the table if he didn't take it, because of obviously the Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley franchise, who's going to get the tag conundrum they were in. And they did not take that deal, Justin, because I think the guaranteed money in it wasn't great, but it was a very high average annual value and essentially guaranteed him 2 years. Didn't fully guarantee 2 years, but essentially guaranteed 2 years on it. And they really thought that the Giants were going to, hey, if they want to get this deal done, they're going to offer more. The way that Daniel Jones did his contract, right? But the Giants, we've talked about it over and over again, with Saquon Barkley playing the running back position, and specifically him with his injury history, the franchise tag was a better decision on paper, even though they wanted to get a deal done. So when they called the bluff of hey, we're going to take this offer and it's not going to be there when we come back after the deadline, they called that bluff and they lost that bluff. And I think that's where Saquon got screwed over. And then they offered, another deal with less guaranteed money. And then the $22 million guaranteed money, but it was only $11 million per year. Essentially it was 2 tags they offered him. And I somewhat understand not taking that. But man, I know Saquon's side will say, oh, nope, if those deals would have made sense, we would have taken them. But to me, he passed up cash in his pocket. by not taking one of those first two deals, the bye week deal or the pre-tag deadline deal.
Yeah, and so your theory is, and I like, yeah, the APY, not the guaranteed money. The APY has to be higher than $22 million, correct? Yes.
It was 13 million. It was 13 a year.
So,
one of those
those
two offers before the deadline was $13 million per year.
So here's my question, and this transitioning to the interview that Saquon Barkley just had. The reason why Saquon Barkley declined the in-season offer, and then maybe, I guess, the off-season offer, but especially let's just say the in-season offer, is because he said, I want to bet on myself, that I think that I can get more. And then you're saying that he did get more with that off-season offer, and that's why he declined the in-season offer, because, I can bet on myself, and I think I can get more, and I want to get more. But it wouldn't. They told you that they were going to take it off the table if you declined it. You declined it. And they told you that they were going to franchise tag, and that was not going to change. Yet you chose this path in a way. But isn't, continue to bet on yourself that even if it's not an ideal deal for you, the Giants aren't going to cut you after 1 year. And you brought this up with Weiss in a more extended conversation, but you're right. If you really wanted to, quote unquote, bet on yourself, take the higher APY if it's incentive based. If you truly believe in yourself, you're going to hit those incentives. You're going to hit those benchmarks that even if the guaranteed money isn't so good, you can earn up to $13 million if you've already taken this mentality of, I'm going to continue to bet on myself. Is that,
well, you're hurt, and you're hurt, and the whole is like, well, what if he gets hurt? Well, you're worse off if you get hurt on the tag.
Right.
Because it's like no one's going to give you a big contract after that. At least you have the guaranteed money was 19 mil. Say he gets have a catastrophic injury this year. Well, he's got 19 mil. Well, yeah, it's not the two tags, but you weren't going to get a second tag if you got a catastrophic injury this year.
Yeah, I just found it to be so strange on that. He went on. If you haven't listened to the interview, Saquon Barkley went on a podcast called Money Matters Podcast. There's this one guy, Jack, that has a shit ton of followers. He's like a financial guy. I guess him and Saquon are both
He's a
Bitcoin guys, and that's how that connection kind of started. They talk a lot of money, but also you did get to know Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley was honest about a lot of different things and stuff like that. So it was a cool interview to listen to. But that was just so strange hearing how I want to bet on myself, but you, I guess, declining all these offers and playing on the franchise tag is continuing to bet on himself that he's going to ball out this year and then get a bigger, his goal is to obviously get a bigger contract after this year, but that's not realistic with the way that the running back market is. And it's also not realistic with what the Giants are. The Giants are not going to offer him more money next year. They're not. You have to realize that.
Here's the thing, Justin, and this is why pre-deadline, and it's why I'm like, man, something doesn't add up. They were trying, because they asked for 16 mil in the start, right? Obviously. And they knew they wouldn't get 16 mil per year, but Saquon and them thought that they would get closer to 16 than 13, where 14 and a half may have been that number, right? Because they kind of viewed the Giants' first offer was their lowball offer. But in reality, no, the Giants' first offer was no, this is a good offer because we want to get you signed now. We don't want to have to deal through this. And, it didn't get better after the deadline. And that's where it's post-deadline, he obviously wasn't trying to get that same amount, but pre-deadline, I do think. Now, here's where Saquon Barkley is obviously hurt and where he does have a right to be upset about the Giants Giants.
This is a shitty situation, but he made a shitty situation a shittier situation.
Yeah, and I think his agents gave him bad guidance. Saquon is hurt, and this is where I think he has a little bit to be bothered by at the Giants organization, even though the Giants did the right thing overall, is that Saquon Barkley wants to be a Giant for life, and the Giants organization communicated to him throughout these negotiations they wanted him to be a Giant for life. But the Giants never really gave him an offer that showed that, an offer that would have showed that would have essentially guaranteed about 3 years. Or virtually guaranteed 3 years, even if it wasn't fully guaranteed. And they never gave that offer, nor should they have. But they also shouldn't have told. told Saquon, we want you to be a Giant for life. Like, yeah, we would like you to be a Giant for life, but we are not ready to give you an offer because of your injury history to guarantee or make it very much more possible that you're going to be a Giant for life. Yeah. And I think that's where Saquon, who has done everything the right way, has been Mr. Giant for 5 years, that's where he's bothered. Is like, man, we preach family, we do all this, and you guys were kind of cutthroat with me.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, this is not Dave Gettleman's Giants, and if that
I
type
agree.
of and if that type and right where this is, it's cutthroat and it sucks, obviously, and we've obviously made that abundantly clear. But I am glad that Joe Schoen, he is being paid and he is hired as the Giants general manager to evaluate and assign value with all players, by the way, on the roster. This is not just with Saquon Barkley. I am glad he has done that in this situation.
Yeah, I am too. It's just that's the Saquon point of view from it.
Yeah. And I kind of want to get to, like,
and Saquon's very sensitive and reads everything about him and stuff too.
Extremely sensitive. But I had that note of, Joe Schoen is paid to evaluate and assign value, and I'm glad he's done that right around the same time in the interview where Saquon was talking about how the Giants gave him a comp. Do you want to talk about that and get into that?
Yeah, actually I do. So at the bye week, they gave him a comp when they're doing the contract. And he didn't say the exact players, but the ones who would be in the range of the contracts that he got were like guys, he said, like, that aren't really used in the passing game. They're kind
downhill
of
runners.
Downhill runners. And using context clues, I think it's Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb, just because those are two of the, the top 5 paid backs. And also their contracts match what the Giants probably offered Saquon, $12 million per year and $12.5 million per year. And Saquon took offense to that because, well, he views himself more as being involved in the receiving game and brought up like his reception total from his rookie season. And this is where Saquon's wrong. Because Saquon's not a great receiving back. And he brought up, like, well, in OTAs, they were using me as a receiver, stuff like that. And I'd even drop 5 pounds for that. Well, one, OTAs are passing camps. I don't think they're going to be, like, they want to use you, so they use you in that. But once camp started,
there's a very big difference, by the way. I'm sorry. Very big difference between, did he clarify that the Giants told him to cut weight? Or did he just go and do that on his own because he thought he was going to be used one way?
He didn't say either way. So it could be the Giants asked him to cut 5 pounds.
I got the impression that he just did it because he thought what his usage was going to be.
Yeah,
but that is a very important distinction.
Yeah. But there wasn't a distinction made. So
right.
But yeah, if you just listen to the interview, you'd probably think that he just did it on his own by the way he worded it. And this is a talking point we had earlier, and I even brought up, I went and looked for the tweet I had of it, is the first few days of camp, they were trying to get him involved in the passing game, and it wasn't good. It wasn't. Because he's not a good route runner, and they were doing it specifically in the red zone, and I had a tweet saying, like, they kind of need to scrap this, because Saquon is not a great route runner, and because they want to use him as such a mismatch, especially in the red zone, they're having Daniel Jones, like, that's their first part of this read. This is who we want this play to go to. And it's not developing well because Saquon's not a great route runner. And DJ was either forcing it to him or being late to get off of Saquon Barkley and having a bad decision or incompletion or interception on the second or third part of progression of the play. And you saw that in the Titans game, right? Where it's like it's not Saquon Barkley's fault for Daniel Jones making a bad decision or throwing an interception, but it is where on him to be like, okay, well, this is not how we're going to use you, which, like, we saw in the Titans game. Like, was that a bad route ran by Saquon Barkley where they were trying to get them to bite on a flare route and he was going to go into the corner? Yeah, because they ran that play a couple times in preseason, showed that on film, showed that on Bills film, trying to get them to bite. Was it a bad route by Saquon Barkley? Absolutely. But Daniel Jones should have dirted that throw. He should have thrown it into the stands, and that's on Daniel Jones' fault. But they changed from that because Saquon's not a great receiver. Now, you can look at his completion percentage and his reception totals. Like dumbass Mike Tannenbaum's, they were a good receiver. It's all off of dumps and flares and flats. That's all it is in screen games. Like, he's not a Christian McCaffrey, so he should be compared to those Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb. And this is where I'm going to get on Saquon a little bit. When you're like, oh, I'm not going to be compared to those guys. Well, you should hope so, because Derrick Henry's better than you. And he doesn't have the injury history that you have. And Saquon said that they thought that I would jump at that deal to buy because of my injury history. You should have jumped at it, because your injury history, for me personally, is the thing that would worry me about giving you a long-term contract. Not the whole running back conversation, not this. That's what stops me from being willing to want to give Saquon a 3-year deal. The injury. So, you could talk about bet on yourself, but betting on yourself has you in this situation. Because a contract could have been done.
Yeah, and again, the Giants literally told him that they're going to give him an offer, and then after that offer, that if they were going to franchise tag him, that they were going to pull that offer. And they did. And it just came down to he didn't believe them, I guess. And his team told him to not believe. Yeah, but about the receiving thing, man, how many coaching staffs has there been? And I get it, 2 of the coaching staffs we haven't liked. We did like Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka last year. And they tried things in the beginning of the season that they thought would work. And one of the things that I guess that they tried, and one of the things that I guess didn't work, was Saquon Barkley lining up as like a Christian McCaffrey receiver. And then they had to move away from it because, it didn't work. And Saquon had to carry the load. He mentioned how, I started getting the ball 20, 30 times a game, and I was 30 to 40% of the offense. But also you have to recognize that, well, that's not ideal. Like, that was not the ideal offense that the Giants wanted to run, and it's also not the ideal offense that you want to run in the NFL. And I do think, like, receiving ability is not just, taking swing passes out of the backfield and flares out of the backfield and stuff like that. Like, we've had 5 years for Saquon Barkley to really showcase if he is a great receiving back. And I think, we've talked about this time and time again. Is he a weapon out of the backfield catching the ball? Yeah. I mean, those swing passes at certain points last year was an extension of the running game. But does that make Saquon Barkley unique as a good receiver? No.
No, he's a good threat in the passing game. He's not a good receiver, if that makes sense. Because now, here's where Saquon can be a good receiver, or used much better than receiving game. But this is where he's been hurt a little bit. And Pat Shurmur's offense, you remember the Washington touchdown? They ran him up the seam on a firm of 4 verts. Shurmur did use him more in the passing game, but Shurmur also would 7-step drop and didn't feel the need to keep the back end. Where the past couple years, Saquon's had to stay in for protection on the offenses that they're type of running. So Saquon can be utilized more in the receiving game, but it's not because he's a great route runner. It's, again, getting him open down in space. Yeah. And don't throw double moves at me as a reason why he's a good route runner. But that's where the disconnect was, because the top 2 highest paid are who? McCaffrey and Kamara.
Yeah.
16 mil, and then I think Kamara's 14.5. And that's where I'm talking about, like, they were truly trying to get closer to that money than they were the Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry 12 to 13 mil.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that Saquon Barkley thinks this. Like, he should think that he's the best running back in the NFL. And he said that over and over again. He's like, I know I'm the best running back in the NFL. Like, yeah, dude, like, go out there and be a dog and continue to prove it. I don't think we're here saying that Saquon Barkley you should think that you're the 6th best running back in the NFL or the 5th best running back in the NFL. No, but It's Joe Schoen's job to look through the weeds of that. Hey, the players should think that they are the best. Like, I want that athlete to have that killer mentality, but I want my GM, when it comes down to negotiations and assigning value, I want my GM to do a good job of doing that, and I think Joe Schoen did.
Yeah. So, but Saquon's hurt, man, because of, the Giant for Life stuff. And as much as we want to talk about how, well, this is about the future, I understand the feeling of, like, look at what I've been through for the last 5 years. Now, this is the situation Gettleman fucked him with and put him in. And it's like, and now you want to nickel and dime me? So I understand that. Like, I understand that feeling of, like what he did last year and how much he contributed to winning last year, and then them playing hardball. I understand that feeling. Like he should be pissed off. But at the end of the day, has anything changed for you? Because obviously we talked about it. The report they're gonna say he's might not show up, and he said in that interview, like, I know what my leverage is to say F the Giants and F my teammates. But even every time he says that, he has to preface it like, but everyone knows that's not what I want to do. I don't want to do that. Like, yeah. He's showing up. He's gonna show up.
Yeah, I agree. There is still part of me. I started off the last show and the Saquon show saying that, hey, there is part of me that thinks like working out like a 2-year deal that's barely more than the franchise tag. Like, would that have really been so difficult? And maybe we're going to be a couple months from now saying that, but here we are. He's going to show up, and if this was any other player but Saquon Barkley, this would not be a story. But because Saquon Barkley there's such emotional ties to Saquon Barkley, and he plays running back that, they get the ball handed to them so much. And Saquon Barkley, I'm going to get really salty right now, but on a 3rd and 17 can have an amazing 14-yard gain. And wow, that's an NFL highlight that goes for an entire week. People care about this a lot more than any other player that this could possibly happen to.
Anybody missing camp in New Jersey is a big deal.
But I'm saying the reaction to this.
Well, and it happened to 3 running backs at the same time, so that's what also makes it the running back conversation in general.
Yeah.
But all right, let's get into this interview with Weiss first. This episode was brought to you by.
Tell me who.
SeatGeek. Today's episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. If you don't know what SeatGeek is, they're a ticketing app that makes buying tickets super simple. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events every single day on SeatGeek, including sports, concerts, festivals, and more. Preseason tickets are on there. Go check out the preseason Giants. Like, if you're someone who maybe struggles with affording to take your family to a regular season game, which I don't envy you, like, preseason is a great time to get there, and your kids will never forget that. I'll never forget the first preseason game went to, and it wasn't even the Giants. It was the Bucks. First NFL game I've ever been to. Bucks Patriots. It was the year after we beat their ass in Super Bowl 42. They always want to make sure you are getting a good deal. So when you're on the app, look for the green dots. Green means good. Red means bad. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. We've got the hookup. Use code GIANTS for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code GIANTS. Click the link in the description to download the app. You'll be glad you did. And here is Weiss / NYG Daily. All right, we're now welcome on to the show. Last episode before camp, we're having on NYG Daily Weiss. What's going on, man? You pumped for camp?
Bobby, Justin, yes, I'm very pumped for camp. To see you guys, more importantly. Haven't seen you guys much this offseason, so it's going to be fun. It's a fun training camp.
Yeah, so you're going to some of them, right?
I am. Going to be there Thursday and Friday, and then kind of head back home toward the weekend, and then come back probably Monday, Tuesday. And then we'll see. Maybe I'll stay for Wednesday, too, depending on how I feel.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a fun time getting into all that. But we want to talk Saquon Barkley stuff. We really didn't even put together an outline for this interview, but I don't want to go make this an entire Saquon episode. But starting off with it, did you think he was going to end up on the tag, or did you think a deal was going to get done?
So I don't like to play insider. I'm not an insider, but people talk, and I had heard Friday afternoon, like, listen, both sides are going into the weekend thinking, hey, we're going to get this done. We feel pretty comfortable. We're close enough. It's going to take some, you scratch my back, I scratch yours type thing, and we're going to get this thing done. And by Monday, 4 o'clock, we'll have a deal. So I put out a tweet just like, hey, feel very confident about this. Have a great weekend. But then Monday came around, and I started asking other people that cover the team, and asking other people that sort of have connections per se. And I was like, how are you guys feeling about this? What do you guys think? And, the sense I got was, we feel good, but, we'll see. So I was really surprised. I was really, really surprised. I thought for sure that this deal would get done because I thought the Giants would come to that magic number of 22 million guaranteed, which is 2 franchise tags. And they did. If they were at 19.5, I don't think that they would, thought that they would get to that 22. And when they did and Saquon declined, I thought reportedly, it was surprising. And that's why I was pretty surprised this thing did not get done. But it's this negotiations, right? You give a little, they give a little, you try to get close, you try to get a deal done. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And in this case, they didn't.
Yeah, I always thought it'd get done because there's just more cash flow on taking a contract. But now I've kind of like I'm not believing any bluff of him not playing week 1.
No.
Now I'm into like, okay, what happens if he has another good year, right? Because franchise tagging him again would be pretty dirty business. And that has to be the goal for Saquon, is to get into next free agency without the franchise tag on him and get into the open market, because that's where he's just going to get his best deal, That's the only way this is a win for Saquon Barkley, if he's able to get a similar contract or even a better one that he was offered this past offseason, next offseason. And I think he is hurt, right? Like, and this is where I do think the Giants did him wrong in these negotiations. Is Saquon wants to be a Giant for life. And they told him throughout this process they want him to be a Giant for life. But they don't. They would like him to be, but they're not willing to offer him a contract to make him a Giant for life, right? Like, hey, if it works out that way, good. And I don't think they should offer him a Giants for life contract, which would be, 4 years with 2 years fully guaranteed, high average annual value. I don't think they should do that, but they kind of told him that throughout the process, and the negotiations, the money and the contracts offered didn't show that. Right, and I think that's where Saquon's hurt the most.
And if they gave him a 2-year deal, or if he accepted whatever 2-year deal they were giving him, it gets a lot easier to negotiate with the running back that's maybe on like the back end of 28, who maybe understands the reality of things, and maybe Saquon Barkley takes some steps back within the next 2 years, which I think is inevitable. And then he's not negotiating from the fact that I touched the ball 352 times this year and I basically was 30% of the offense. It gets easier negotiating from that way. What do you think, Weiss?
Well, I think what Bobby's saying about him being hurt, I think you have to go back to before the franchise tag was placed. I think the Giants really, really pushed to get a deal done. And look, I'm not a salary cap person, nor do I know the exact deal that was offered, but if they offered him $13 million a year, or let's say $13.5 a year, like some of the stuff that was reported, what do you think the guaranteed dollar is? Is it, let's say it's $19 million guaranteed. The Giants are not going to cut him after 1 year.
Exactly. That's my point. It's like, just because it doesn't reach that guaranteed money that you want, but it's virtually guaranteed to you. Unless you have the worst injury of your career and they are in a position where they want to flat out cut you, you're getting that money, which is why I'm like, I don't understand this from your point of view, Saquon Barkley. Right. Even when they, again, I know, hey, I understand. It's the guaranteed money should match 2 franchise tags, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't. And this is where his agents screwed up, is that they really thought the Giants would come up. And when they said, this is we're taking this offer off the table, they called their bluff, and Joe Schoen was not bluffing. So that's where I don't have all this sympathy in the world for Saquon Barkley. It's because you were offered fair deals that would have made you high average annual value, would have made you paid more average annual value than Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb. But you turned that down. And that's where I don't feel bad for Saquon Barkley, is that your agency, I think, led him astray a little bit, thought that the Giants were bluffing on that and that eventually they would raise on it, and the Giants really didn't want to. Like, I bet you it's like because the franchise tag is friendly for the Giants, they're like, no, when we say we're taking this off the table, we really do, because we'd rather do that than give you this big contract after we gave Daniel Jones, we didn't have to use the tag on DJ.
Yeah, that's why I believe the Mike Florio thing to a certain extent, where they told him, hey, look, if you don't accept this deal, it's going to come off the table.
It is true.
Even before that, we heard Joe Shane said himself, like, hey, there was an offer and we took it off the table. Now we know the reason why is like, hey, they wanted him to take the deal before the franchise tag was applied. But I mean, look, they tried. I think people are looking for like who to blame, whose fault is it? Saquon's agent's fault. Look, Saquon was 5 minutes away from becoming unrestricted free agent. Like he was 5 minutes away from becoming unrestricted free agent.
Yeah.
So if that 5 minutes went by and Daniel Jones doesn't sign the deal, the tag goes on Jones, and Saquon goes and he can bring an offer back to the Giants that pays him 13, 14 million a year, and who knows what the Giants do. I can't blame him for taking that calculated risk, but when you take a risk, there's a chance that it backfires, and it backfired on you. So you got to live with it. You got franchise tagged. The Giants continued, I thought, to negotiate. Apparently, they got to that $22 million. And at that point, it's like, they're not going back to that pre-tag deal. They told you that. So miscalculations, sure. Risks that failed, sure. Did the Giants' ego kind of get in the way too? Do they not want to put that deal back on the table? Sure. Did the Giants say, hey, look, the franchise tag is what it is. We're comfortable taking the heat for, the duration of training camp with the questions and the drama and all that? Sure. But look, they didn't get the deal done. So it is what it is. You have to live with the results of from what happened with the negotiations.
Would you, because they can't obviously get a long-term deal done, would you be willing to negotiate a one-year deal with him, which you can do, and have a stipulation in it that, hey, we cannot franchise tag you next offseason to get him into camp?
Listen, the CBA is the CBA. I think the franchise tag sucks. I listened to the Money Matters podcast. The guy gave 15 different analogies.
Saquon should get a 4-year, $500,000 medium income home deal.
Yeah, I listened to all that. The guy made valid points, but it's everything we knew. The franchise tag sucks. It is what it is. But it's collectively bargained. It's agreed to by the players. I can't blame the Giants for using it. Like, I can't. It's not like they're doing something illegal. If they come out and say, hey, we won't tag you next year, I'm fine with it. But if they come out and say, hey, look, if he has another good year, we have the franchise tag at our disposal to tag him again and control the negotiations again. I can't blame him. We can talk about the human element of it. Sure, the franchise tag sucks when you talk about the human element of it. What that guy said with cost control and all that, it is true. But it is collectively bargained, and I cannot blame the Giants for saying, hey, Saquon, you have another good year? Guess what? Here's another tag.
The franchise tag will never go away because when they're doing the CBA, the 98% of players never ever have to think about it.
How many players deal with the franchise tag every year? 6 or 7 max?
Yeah. And also something that podcast didn't really fully get, and I understand like the guy is interviewing Saquon Barkley, but like I'm listening to it as a Giants fan. I'm a Giants fan first. I'm not a fan of Saquon Barkley first. Or I'm not I'm not a fan of any player before I am a fan of my favorite football team. And something that like, it's not, I get why they don't realize it, but something that like we all know is that if there is a way for my favorite team to get ahead and to be financially responsible for a player that has injury history and for a position that has a lot of baggage to it to begin with, I want my team to utilize that advantage. And that's what this franchise tag is.
It would be organizational malpractice if they say, oh, we're not going to use the franchise tag because we don't want to hurt so-and-so's feelings. Like,
yeah,
I'm sorry, but you bargained it. It was agreed upon.
My question, though, is they can negotiate a 1-year deal, and they could put it in the contract that he cannot be franchise tagged again next offseason. Would you be willing to do that to get him into camp?
No.
Why not?
No.
Yeah, why?
You're telling me take that $10.1 million, increase it or add incentives?
Well, make it 10 point. You keep it at 10.1. But you put a stipulation he will not be franchise tagged next offseason, and he comes in the camp.
Let me ask you this. Let's say he has a good year, right? A great year, depending on how you would look at it. And they make the playoffs, and they get on the precipice of going to the Super Bowl, hypothetically speaking. And you get to the offseason, and you're like, okay, I I got to make one or two moves, and I'm right there again. And one of those moves includes keeping Saquon Barkley for another year, right? Or making sure that I retain
Yeah.
Barkley and then add another piece. Like you can't.
It's still really dirty to do it twice, though. It's really dirty to do that twice.
It is. I listen,
when you have no
again,
intention of giving him a long-term contract.
If we talk about the human element, it's dirty to do it once.
It's not that dirty to do it once. You do it a second time, you are totally screwing this guy out of ever getting a long-term deal. If he has a good year this year, he'll get a nice little deal from somebody.
Human element of it, I think it sucks because I think Saquon on the open market could fetch a good deal for himself that pays him the annual average salary he wants and gives him the guaranteed dollars that he wants. I think there would be a team that would do that. But from a football perspective, why put yourself at a disadvantage like that? Like, okay, let's say the Giants.
But Saquon could go scorch earth if he get if and I wouldn't blame him if he got a second contract. Sure. Go scorch earth, demand a trade, like not play Mr. Nice Guy.
Demand a trade. Saquon demands a trade. At least you're getting something back for him. If you tell him I'm not going to franchise tag you, all that does is you eliminate a tool that you have at your disposal that where you can either keep the player or get something back for the player. So
part of me just thinks it's worth it to have him in camp and not pissed off. And
I think he'll show up to camp at some point in August. I don't think this is a see you in September type thing. I think he'll be at camp at some point. Whether he'll take part at what capacity, I don't know, but I think he'll show up at some point. It'll be a hold in. I'll say that.
I think he'll I mean, Weiss, that's a good point because he feels the heat of like people. I mean, he's felt that for years. Like we know just from certain interviews that he's done, we know that he's been on social media a lot recently. He's very conscious about his reputation, and he could miss camp for 2 weeks, and he could see tweets of people starting to turn on him, which I know Bobby wants to talk about a little bit. And the more people that start to turn on him, I think he may feel that, and he may show up in August. I inevitably, like, if you had to really put a gun to my head and make me make a prediction, I think he shows up in September. But hey, a lot of those tweets, and if that's something that you pay attention to, it's going to get to him.
I predict he'll probably show up the week of the third preseason game.
Okay.
That last 10 days or week or whatever.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see because there's most players you would just be like, all right, he's going to show up week 1, but he's going to play. But with him, he is very hyper-focused on his image, and especially with the New York market. And he understands all that, and he reads everything. He can be sensitive about that stuff. That's going to be very interesting to see how he specifically deals with it.
It's all the negotiating tactic too. Like, hey, you tagged me the first time. I'm here. I didn't skip out on all the training camp. If we have a good year next year, people are going to remember that, and people will bring that up when they inevitably judge the move of the Giants tagging Saquon again if it gets to that.
Yeah. Giants also have some other good players on expiring contracts this year too, with Adore, Leonard Williams, Xavier McKinney.
Right.
More so than last year where it was just they had DJ, Saquon, and Love, but even Love not on any of those guys level. All right, let's move off Saquon and let's talk about this offense because I don't think we've talked to you since they've made all their offseason additions. I think this is a great way to start conversation. Who leads the team in receiving yards?
Darren Waller.
Really? So you think he's going to stay healthy? He's going to be the number one guy in this offense, and they're not going to work through somebody else or anything?
The health part is a concern, obviously, but if he's healthy and he's out there, I mean, they're paying him a lot of money. They traded draft capital for him. They obviously have a plan for him. I think, he's their guy. He's their number one, quote unquote, receiving option.
He is still a superstar.
Yes,
like, watch him at the end of last year while hating that coaching staff, while that team being in total disarray, and watch him play. And it's like, this guy still has it. And that's when it's like also when the Saquon conversation comes up, like they got carried by Saquon last year. It's like, yeah, well, one, I agree. Who the hell did you want them to run their majority of their offense through? Darius Slayton?
I don't
Richie
think they
James?
got carried, but I don't agree with that.
Well, no,
They got carried
but
by
he was
Saquon.
their main weapon.
Sure, yeah,
He was their
absolutely.
main weapon, and obviously that's the majority coming on the ground game.
But that's a problem, not a solution, though.
Right.
That's
I
one-
agree, but people forget that Darren Waller's on this team. So
Yes.
if Darren Waller can stay healthy, man, that makes this offense just so much different. Like that dude's a freaking star, and it's why I'm so excited for him. Like it's just like if anyone, it's like Andrew Thomas stay healthy, Darren Waller stay healthy, because then I feel like this offense can do some damage if those two guys stay healthy.
Is he the top player that you're looking forward to seeing the most in camp, or does somebody else like make the cut?
Evan Neal's the player I'm most interested to watch in camp. Most excited, yeah, Darren Waller. Like I am excited to talk about Darren Waller in camp and watch him cook dudes because he's gonna do it.
Twice.
The Evan Neal stuff, a lot of people are going to overreact either way, right? Especially the one-on-one stuff and the highlights. With Evan Neal, I'm like, I'll see you in week 1, and we'll see where we are in week 1. I'm not going to get too high or too low based on what happens in camp or the limited snaps in the preseason.
I kind of disagree with that. Weiss, I'll let you keep rocking, but I kind of disagree with that because the same things in which Evan Neal struggled with during camp and I'm not going to say pre-camp, like those camp practices of not being able to get out of your stance and stuff like that. That's what he struggled with during the regular season. Obviously, you don't want to provide any like big indictments on anybody during camp. Like, yeah, we'll see you in week 1. We'll see what you look like when you actually get out there. But if I'm still seeing that he's laid out of his stance and, maybe he can't get to his third step without opening up his hips and stuff like that, that's something that will be like a red flag because that is what he struggled with last year. But I agree. Like, hey, week 1, like if you're playing well, who cares about camp? So,
yeah, but yeah, Darren Waller to me, I think sometimes Giant fans are forgetting what kind of player the team acquired. Like this is a legitimate skilled player that you can have as a number 1 option, and he can sort of open things up for other people. And I think if he's healthy, knock on wood, I think he's gonna be the team's leading skilled player in terms of yardage.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, obviously, like we have some wide receiver talent on the team right now, but no one is in the level of Darren Waller. Like what he does is truly amazing, and he fits Daniel Jones for the most part, right? Where Darren Waller wins with his route running. He wins at the stem. He has really good releases and makes himself open, where it's not like, all right, you're going to have to throw this ball and this guy's not open, but he's going to be open by the time the ball gets there, or he's going to make a contested catch, where it's like, no, this guy just gets open and makes it easy for your quarterback. And I mean, truly going to be the best weapon that Daniel Jones has ever had in the passing game. And I'm excited. I am truly excited for him. Like, please stay healthy, because I'm so hyped up, but it's like, it's the hype with the scare in the back of the head. Like, the guy's missed a lot of games the last 2 years too.
Can I tell you the other person I'm very excited about?
Daniel Jones. Yeah, I hope he has a good camp this year, because last year was really bad to watch.
Yeah, it was.
And the Ty Dunn story that came out, we talked about this on a mailbag last week. The Ty Dunn story about how, they made the practices hard on purpose and stuff.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Well, one, I don't know how true that is. Like, did they do that for a session? I don't think they did that for 4 weeks, right? Like, that would be pretty dumb to just be putting everything just to see how the guy's built. But even if it was 100% true they're doing it all the time, when did Daniel Jones look his worst last year?
Beginning of the season.
And not just played bad, like looked uneasy. Like, it was the first time ever I came on a podcast like, this guy just does not look comfortable playing quarterback.
It looked like he was going to get benched at some point in the first 6 weeks of the season. I'm not going to lie.
Those first 2 games were bad. Now, the Dallas game, he played well despite everybody. That was like the traditional, like, prime time Daniel Jones is doing like this ridiculous shit, but they lose because everyone just starts dropping the ball and shit.
People don't understand that game. They were so close to coming back and tying that game. That was a close game in the fourth quarter, despite everything that was going on. And I just
Kenny Galladay dropped 2 passes. Yeah. Sterling Shepard dropped a 25-yard pass. David Sills slipped and fell and turned into an interception.
Graham Gano missed a 40-something yard field goal early in the game. So if it wasn't for a Graham Gano missed field goal, that final drive to end the game would have been for a win.
Yeah, that
Yes.
was like how many times? Because when the Daniel Jones primetime record comes up, now there's been some bad ones, like the two Monday nighters versus the Bucks. But
Right.
how many is like primetime games where it's like, man, this guy is gritty as hell. He's freaking getting blown up while delivering tight passes, but they're just dropping them. Like, how many times had that happened? And that Dallas game was a perfect example of that.
Well, the Green Bay game, that drive was sort of his moment, right? It
Yeah,
was a primetime game, but it wasn't really a primetime game. It was like a 9 a.m. game. But I really believe that if two of those things that you guys mentioned or one of those things don't happen, that Green Bay game is being talked. That Dallas game is being talked about like how that Green Bay game is, because I really believe that was that was sort of like when it all clicked for him, and he was like, okay, even though the pressures and all that, he still had his team in a position to win the game,
yeah, he
and
played well from the Dallas
and
game on. Now there's
he
a
made
little
some he
blip
made
here
some
and there, but
insane, but he made some insane throws in that game, and he made some great plays in that game. And even though it didn't translate to points and it didn't translate to sustainable drives, I just thought it was, for me, it was that moment when I was like, okay, I'm more interested to see this for the rest of the season. Like if we can not have him get pressured on, what was it, 33 of however many
that game was
dropbacks.
nuts. I remember he was like running for his. That was so funny. It's like we're 2-1. The two games that we won, Daniel Jones played bad. The one game we lost, Daniel Jones played well.
Yeah. So that game was where it all came together. And that's why I'm looking forward to seeing him in year two, more continuity, more, better pieces around him, competent coaching. Like that should excite people. Like he had a I was thinking about this. I was in the car with myself and I was talking to myself and I was like, this dude from the start of the season to week 3 to week 6 to week 9 had different wide receivers that he was throwing the ball to. And when they found a little bit of continuity after the trade deadline when they got Isaiah Hodgins, he played his best ball. Even though he had
It was
to
the
find the
first time they
rhythm.
could run 11 personnel and it wasn't like laughable.
Right. Like as soon as they were able to find some continuity with their receivers and everyone had a role, Daniel Jones got better. He got to the playoffs, won a playoff game. And I think a lot of that's being overlooked for some reason. I don't know why. But if for me, as somebody that hasn't been a stark supporter of him for his entire career, I'm very much looking forward to him this season and seeing what he can do with a stable coaching staff, no changes, better roster. Like that excites me a lot more than some of the other things that are being mentioned.
When do you think the media will slow down on? I keep on coming back to Saquon. I'm going to do my best to not be annoyed by them. And I said that at the top of the show. It's like we're going to talk about Saquon a lot on this episode. After this, we are not going to be scumbag reporters and try and get headlines out of Saquon every single day of camp. We're going to talk about camp and what's happening at camp. Justin, do you have anything you wanted to touch on?
No. Weiss, I'm excited to see you. I lost my microphone in the middle of this recording because my computer's crapping out. So I'm looking forward to seeing you, and
Yes.
we're gonna break down this team. I know the last couple of weeks has been like very Saquon heavy, but I'm really excited to get with you and hopefully we're seeing this offense and Jalen Hyatt and all these kind of new additions, Darren
Totally
Waller,
forgot
Paris
about him.
Campbell, and seeing
Paris
them
Campbell.
rocking and rolling.
Paris Campbell is my guy. I'm very excited to watch Paris Campbell in this offense.
I was looking at some numbers for Hodgins, and I saw Campbell. Ooh, you had like the third highest completion percentage or catch rate against zone coverage. Very nice to know. And that's the kind of stuff you learn in PPP season. What do you guys got coming up with the podcast or anything coming up the pike with you guys?
Yeah, we got some guests lined up as we sort of get to the regular season. Bring on guests to help us preview the season. What the thought process is of what the outside world thinks of the Giants. I think Giant fans sort of have this expectation, where it's like they got to get back to the playoffs, potentially win a playoff game. I want to see what the outsiders think. What do they think about their offseason, their draft, their decision to keep Daniel Jones? And I think it'll be nice to see what the outside world sort of thinks. It's a lot of mixed bags about the Giants offseason. I thought it was a great offseason for them, both free agency and the draft. So
I can't remember who we were talking to, but it was like basically they set out everything that they wanted to do, except get a wide receiver one, but there was really no avenue to get a legitimate wide receiver one. So, I mean,
there wasn't even a wide receiver traded that you could look at and say, damn, I wish we did that deal because that's a wide receiver one.
Yeah, DJ Moore was traded, but obviously that's not a deal we could have done.
Right.
Would you have traded the 25th pick for DJ Moore?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, okay, me too. Yeah. I love DJ Moore.
Bonafide wide receiver one, I would have traded those. Yeah.
Me too. As long as they're young. Which DJ Moore is. All right, we will we'll see you in camp. We'll get you on the van for your official record predictions. Yes. So make sure you have that ready.
I didn't get in the van last year. Your guy Julian was like, "Hey, stick around here. I want to get you in the van." So
they took the van away from us mid Fan Fest last year.
And the van drives off. I'm like, "Wait, what's going on?"
All right, we'll see you next week, I guess then.
Yeah, we'll definitely catch up.
Thank you to NYG Daily Weiss for coming on the show. Excited to see him during training camp. Excited to see our boys go out there and compete next week. And hey, excited to kind of not talk about Saquon Barkley at least for a couple weeks until he shows up. So this episode is sponsored by Miracle Made. Did you know that your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your overall sleep quality? And oh boy, do I know it. I'm schwitzing in the bed. I'm schwitzing at night. If I don't have my AC cranking, and my sheets can sometimes get all wet, not good. I don't like schwitzing at night. But Miracle Made, even if I don't have my AC kind of blasting at night, because it has like cooling technology, I don't know if they do, but guess what? I'm saying they do because I sleep with Miracle Made sheets and I know they do. So that's awesome. Inspired by NASA, Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding. Boom. It's right there. Temperature-regulated bedding. So you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. It's self-cleaning and designed for your skin. They're luxurious. They give comfort and they give quality. And if I had to give 3 pillars of my life that I live by, it's being luxurious, it's being comfortable, and doing things at a good quality. So try miraclemade.com/giants. I want you to go to that site to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40% off. And if you use our promo code GIANTS at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a free refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/giants and use code GIANTS to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40%. Again, that's trymiracle.com/giants to treat yourself. Treat yourself. Thank you to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode. Bobby Skinner, you'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did. All right, we will be back next week. What day? Every single damn day. Every single damn day we will have a podcast. Every single weekday at least. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The week after that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because the Giants preseason games aren't on either Thursdays or Sundays, which messes up recording schedule a little bit. But for the next 6 weeks, every single weekday you have a podcast. So you have your player profiles and projections, offensive and defensive player. Monday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and then Tuesday, Fridays will be camp recaps, and also we will have an interview on every single Tuesday, Friday pod. So very excited for it. Excited to see you guys. Make sure to come say hello for this camp if you want to be on like a Instagram reel video. Let us know. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.